6:30, it's time to, I'm going to call our regular meeting into session. Summer, will you call roll, please?
Commissioner Blevins?
Here.
Commissioner Norwood?
Here.
Commissioner Siragusa?
Here.
Commissioner Roberts is absent. Commissioner Stallings?
Here.
Commissioner Orr?
Here.
And Mayor Mason.
Here. Tonight, our invocation will be done by Mike Summerfield from the Grace Mennonite Church, followed by our pledge that will be done by Chief Master Sergeant Smith. So, let's stand.
Let's pray. Father, I want to thank you for the privilege of being here this evening to lift up our community leaders to you. I want to thank you for your promise that you will guide our leaders. You can turn the hearts of kings like a watercourse. Surely you can work with a committee of men who are interested in the well-being of our community. I thank you for their willingness to serve. I thank you for their openness to you. I pray, Father, that you'll give them all the wisdom and unity necessary to guide this community into the future. And I ask you for all of it in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. I'll go to item 3.1, consider approval of minutes of the regular commission meeting of September the 19th. Sorry about that. September the 19th, 2023.
Move to approve. Second.
I have a motion and a second. Please cast your votes. Motion passes 6-0. Item number 4, awards presentations, proclamations, and organizational business. First item is 4.1, present pet available for adoption at the city's Animal Welfare Department.
So tonight I brought Binks and his sister Emily. They are 2 of 4 kittens that we have at the, or 2 of the litter of 4 that we have at the shelter. The other 2 is Hocus and Pocus. And then we also have a 5th black little kitten there, but they are all ready for adoption. The litter of 4 is probably about 6 to 7 weeks old. The other one's a little bit younger, but they are so lovey-dovey. They love to cuddle. They just melt into your arms when you're petting them, and they are so ready for a new home. So if you're interested, come out to the shelter tomorrow. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Before I go on to the next topic, I wanted to call our attention. We lost a very good man and former commissioner this past week. And I was just sitting at my desk thinking about that today and just wanted to jot down a few things that I wanted to say tonight. And I'll open it up to any of the commissioners that have anything that they want to say. But as I was sitting there, I was just thinking, when you sit with someone through numerous meetings, numerous executive sessions, you have literally hundreds of phone calls with them over multiple years, you learn a lot about them. You learn what's important to them. And you didn't have to be around Jerry very long to learn that what was important to Jerry were people. He cared very, very dearly about the people of this community. I think that Jerry made a huge impact on this community over the years. I had gotten a text from Fawn last week that he'd asked me to come by. And I got to go in there and see him it's either Thursday or Friday. And, you know, he reached up and grabbed my hand, pulled it down to him, and he said, "David, I'm so glad we got to serve together." You know, and it really affected me. I think back on some of the things that he was involved in, big things that will affect this community for many, many years. One was a Call Water project. And I know that's still going on, but back when that first come about, and it was pivotal, yeah, that's the word I want, whether or not that would work. Jerry hung in there. He thought it was important. He could see the future. He understood that as a community, we had to have that. And he hung his hat on it. And we're here today within 12 months of turning that spigot on, partly because of Jerry Allen. Also thought about the skate park. And I'll be honest, when they were proposing that, I'm sitting there going, I just don't know that anybody's going to use that. And he looked right square at me and he said, David, not everybody's baseball and football players. And he was right. He was right on that. I can drive by that place anytime. And he made an impact, made a great impact. Also wanted to say that when you govern, it's real easy to get so focused on a goal that you want to do that all of a sudden you forget about some of the effects that it has. Jerry was always the type that would challenge you on anything that you were proposing. And he'd ask the hard questions. Always did that every single time, and I always appreciated that. If you could defend that, he would get behind it. If you couldn't, you had to change your vote. And I always appreciated him. He always saw something different. Jerry agreed to serve on our library board not too long ago. He knew that his health was slipping. It would have been better for him not to have served on that board, but he did. He chose to go ahead and do it because it was something that he loved. I texted Jerry before that last library board meeting. I said, hey, Jerry, are you going to be able to be there? If you're not, that's perfectly okay. And he said, I'll be there. Don't worry. Then he goes into the hospital. And I'm thinking, there is no way he's going to be at that meeting. And I'll be darned if Jerry Allen didn't show up that day on a walker to that meeting. Didn't just sit up there. He participated, he asked questions, and he voted. That's the type person he was. And I'll close with just saying that I think this community's been blessed and made better, not because Jerry lived in our community, but because Jerry was invested in our community. Amen. He took his time, come to every meeting. He was involved in so many different boards. I think about the Parks Board. You and I were talking about that the other day. You talk about a continuous term. I think Jerry's been on that, was on that board forever because he wanted a place that our kids could go play. So, we lost a former commissioner, somebody that really cared about Enid, but we also lost a friend. And I think anybody that knew Jerry would probably say that. So that being said, I just wanted to read that into the record, and I just wanted people to understand Jerry made a huge impact in our community. I wish we just had more people like that. So, with that being said, thank you for hearing me. Do any of the other commissioners want to say anything? I didn't tell you I was going to do that, so.
I'd like to say a couple words. I've known Jerry a long, long time because I'm old, and he's been around here forever. I didn't grow up here, but he did. And I remember when I came here in the Air Force back in 1974, not too long after that, I ran into Jerry downtown because he had multiple establishments, restaurants, bars, and things. He was a very entrepreneurial guy. He was always having fun. Wherever he was, there was a fun time. I was on the council in the late 80s, and Jerry followed me. He came on when I went off, and he served well at that point in time, and I watched him, and then he came on again. He served with a space and time twice, and has done a great job. And David has kind of captured the big things as of recent. The library board, I was at that same meeting the other day, his last meeting. I can't believe he was there. It took everything in his body, but he wanted to come to that meeting. He gave so much to the library. He thought so much of it. The library and the parks were Jerry's passion, and it was truly a passion, and we're truly going to miss him.
Yeah, you want to run it again?
Mark, why don't you play that video again? It's 1 minute and 35 seconds.
Mayor, I'd like to
Sure.
speak.
Go ahead, Commissioner.
Jerry was more than just a commissioner. We became very close. He was truly a friend. Back in April, he took me to one of his favorite fishing spots and caught a 5-pound bass. And he told me what lures to use and exactly where to cast it and how to cast it. And gave me a lot of scientific meaning behind different things and explained things about fish that I didn't know anything about. And when I was getting ready this evening for this council meeting, I was thinking, what do I want to wear? And Jerry bought me this jacket. So, you know, he's going to be missed. Good people are missed. And what I have to say to all of us that are still living, when it's your time, what are people going to say about you? That's what's more important than anything else. I went to the hospital and prayed for him, went to his house and prayed for him, and didn't know he had passed. But Monday morning, I prayed. I said, Lord, that's my friend, but I accept your will, not even knowing that he had already passed. I said, Lord, help me not to be selfish, but whatever your will is, I accept it. And let it be done. Not knowing Commissioner Saragusa had already texted me. And then Commissioner Judd Levins, you're the way I found out. And I just wanted to tell you thank you. I appreciate what you said in the text. I really appreciate it. And what you wrote in that text touched my heart.
Thank you.
I appreciate that, man.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much. So, to everyone, whatever you do in life, do it to the best of your ability. And Jerry, when I prayed for him, he said, Derwin, I grew up Catholic, but he said, today I accept the Lord Jesus Christ as my Lord and Savior. So I thank God, and it's between him and God now. But Commissioner Stallings, he thought very highly of you. He didn't always agree with you, but he thought very highly of you. And he didn't always agree with me, and he would let me know. But you know what? Because he didn't agree with me always, it did not stop us from being friends. And he really appreciated this whole commission. We have something special here. And I'm going to close with this. he's going to be missed. But I hope and pray that we do our job to where, when this time comes, we'll be missed also. Thank you.
All right, thank you all very much. We're going to miss Jerry. I'm going to move on to 4.2. Approve the appointment of Roy Camp to the Aviation Advisory Board.
Yeah, I'll talk about that one, Mayor and Commissioners. The ordinance allows for me to appoint members to that board, subject to your approval. Roy Camp is a well-known person in town who has contributed a lifetime to aviation. He's been on that board before. I think he's a fantastic choice. He is interested, and so he is my appointment to that board, subject to your approval.
So I'll look for a motion.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. Please cast your votes. Motion passes 6-0. Item 4.3, approve the appointment of Commissioner Keith Saragusa to the Enid Metropolitan Area Human Service Commission. This is the same thing. The mayor appoints this. I'll be honest, I thought I had appointed that. Apparently I'd overlooked that, but Sherry Zell let me know that I had overlooked it. So with that being said, you and I have already talked. You've agreed to do that. So I think we just have to have a vote on it. Is that correct? So I'll look for a motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Please cast your votes. Motion passes 6-0. Thanks, Commissioner, for agreeing to do that. Item number 5, community development. This will be for a hearing, hold a public hearing regarding a proposed rezoning of property located at 615 West Moore Street from R7 multifamily residential district and C3 general commercial district to R4 residential duplex or two-family dwelling district with a PUD or a PUD overlay. So with that being said, I'll turn it over to Scott.
All right, thank you, Mayor and Commissioners. This item was brought before the MAPC meeting on September the 18th. They approved a preliminary plat and then suggested that we send this on here to this board for approval, the rezoning and overlay portion. So a little bit about this property. This is just a very, very broad map trying to give you an idea where this property is located. So south of Enid High School, this is Moore Street, the on-cue's down here, and this is 615 West Moore. So it's directly south of here and south of Enid High School. And how this development came about, we had a developer that owned this property. He's owned it for some time, and especially hearing about our housing study that we've done, he knew that there was an opportunity in Enid to build some different types of housing, and he wanted to do that. He had plans in the past to build a multifamily apartment complex and some commercial on this lot, and for one reason or the other that didn't happen, and now he's wanted to take the opportunity to try and do it. So what he has in mind is 28 duplex buildings and 56 total units. Looking at a little bit closer version of the map, you can see inside of the square box is the property that is zoned R7 for multifamily, and all of this is C3 for commercial. That's the current zoning. It is a little odd to have one plat with two different zonings within it, but that was done years ago. It does have residential zone 2 on both the east and west sides of this property, and all of this portion north of Moore is zoned R4. Now R4 is zoned for either single family or duplex houses. What he's proposing to turn this into is R4 zoning. So looking at the zones that are around it, it would make sense to allow an R4 zone since it's surrounded by R4 to the north. Looking at our comprehensive plan that we have and paid for back in 2015 and had done. That comprehensive plan does suggest that in the future that we may need to consider ways to make housing more affordable and allow for some different variety of houses to be built. So that's where the PUD comes in. He's asking for R4 zoning with a PUD overlay. While we're on the screen, we'll just go over utilities. There is a sewer main going through the south part of the property, right along here, going through that he will connect to, and there is a 10-inch water main up here, and he'll be able to connect to that. Another exciting project, we have been doing some water improvements across Enid. We've done several. We're doing one right now on East Oklahoma that will improve fire flow and make it a little better for the firefighters to take care of problems if they should occur. But right along here, we are going to extend this 10-inch main and loop into all of these lines all the way across, and that will also help the fire department, and it will actually help this developer. So that's one of the things that's in our budget that we're working on. A little bit about what is a PUD. It's a planned unit development. Its purpose is to provide greater flexibility and more options for people trying to build a development. He's offering some public space over here. There will be some green space that kids can play in. One of the trade-offs for that is you have the modification and ability within a PUD to modify the ordinance required setbacks, yards, and area, height of buildings. And so that's what they've done in this PUD. They've designed, this is the layout of the property. They've got a horseshoe drive. This is all going to be private drive. They will establish water and sewer within an easement, and it will be built to our standard, and the city of Enid will maintain those water and sewer lines after the developer installs them. The streets, part of their PUD statement and agreement, they will maintain those streets and take care of those private streets. According to our engineering department, the material and concrete strength will all be built to the standards that our engineering department determines. So that is another portion that you can do within a PUD, is have a private street. That is the preliminary plat right there. You have a version in your iPads that's much clearer than this slideshow here. But that's the basis of what a PUD does. It allows a lot more flexibility when you're doing something like this. I guess the one thing I'll bring to your attention, the developer does not have sidewalks in this development. There are a lot of reasons for that. I can let Chris Burdick explain more as we go into this hearing process, but the slope of this land and the way that they're doing, in between each house, they will have a retaining wall to deal with the slope that's going on this project. There are no other houses or neighborhoods to the east, west, or to the south that people would connect to or walk to. So that is something that they can do through their PUD, is to request no sidewalks. So, and this is what the final product will look like. These are going to be upscale looking duplex. They're all going to be 3 bedrooms. They'll have single car garages, and each of them will have double driveway. So there will be 2 parking spaces in a driveway and a single car garage for every duplex. Very nice looking product. He is trying to target the Vance Air Force Base crowd because it is somewhat close to Vance Air Force Base right there on Moore, and that's what they're going for. So this is a hearing, and I think I've presented a high level view of what's going on with this PUD and rezoning. So I know we've had one person sign up. You may have some questions, and Chris Burdick, who designed it, is, I don't know, Chris, is here, and he can answer some questions as well.
We do have one person that signed up, but before I call you up, to be perfectly clear, on those streets, they're going to meet all the specs of any new street that we put in to include curb and gutter. They will have curbing.
They will have, what do we call that? It's not curb and gutter. It's a rolled curb.
Yeah.
The rollover curb design is a standard that we have. Is that correct, Morale?
We do have a standard, yes.
Yeah.
It's in our neighborhood.
That what?
It's in our neighborhood. The
It is?
rollover curb.
Okay. But I know we've got some streets that it just goes up to the grass and stops. We're not going to do that. Okay, okay. And the other thing I was wondering about is, and I said on the MAPC when this went through them, do we not have to have any kind of a detention, runoff detention like we do in those other subdivisions?
I can tell you what's been done on this, and Morale and Chris can help, but there's a very significant slope on this, and so there's not too much of a concern about water buildup on this property. A couple of things that they are doing and building on this is on the east side of the property, along the back side here, there will be a concrete flume that will carry all of the stormwater here, and it will go into this direction. There's another concrete flume on the west side, right here, that will catch all of that water, and then there's an earthen berm. Is that the right way to say it, Morale? An earthen flume going down the center of this block, and then they will go through these catch basins here, and underneath the street here, and then leave and go out to Boggy Creek that way. There's 28 feet of slope on this property between here and here. So I don't think there's going to be much pooling in that amount of slope.
Okay, is that someone else's property down on the end, or is that his all the way to Boggy Creek?
That's his all the way to Boggy Creek.
Okay, so we're not discharging that water over onto somebody else?
No.
Okay, then my last question, then I'll open it up to anybody, is I know that's a one-way street and that there's only going to be parking on one side, if I remember correctly from the MAPC.
I don't know anything. I haven't heard about a one-way street. I believe the intention is for it to be either way, but only parking on one side.
But only parking on one side? Okay.
Do I say that correctly,
Yeah,
Chris?
Chris, why don't you come on up? You've designed it. You can probably help answer some of these questions
All right.
as the rep for the developer, Brent Cook.
Evening, Mayor, Commissioners. The street will be two-way, but
Okay.
there will only be parking on one side.
So my concern is, and I'm not opposed to this, I have some concerns from some other areas that we have, is you talked about it being a more narrow street than what we put in everywhere else. That being said, all the parking's on one side. It's been my experience that not everyone follows every sign. So in the event that we have two cars parked in there, one on each side, can we get a fire truck down that?
No.
Be pretty tight.
It's 25 foot, this street would be 25 foot in width with parking on one side, okay? So that gets you down to about 19 feet, okay? Which is adequate to get a truck through, okay? And
Assuming no one's parked on the other
Correct.
side.
But as what was brought up and talked about in the MAPC meeting is the city standard street, residential street is 27 foot face to face, okay? It also allowed parking on both sides. So now, in a typical residential street, where you're allowed to park on both sides, I'm not sure you can get a fire truck.
Okay,
Because you're gonna lose, you know,
okay.
you're only gonna have, and as most people know, in the streets you live on, if people are parking on both sides, you can barely drive your vehicle through there to get through there. But not to make, just to show that comparison is what that's for. The intent is one side of the street parking, and you're correct. I mean, unless it's enforced, you know, people will violate that. But that's just something that they're gonna have to as a community, you know, they're gonna have to kind of monitor that or play. And I think we talked about if it gets out of hand, then we'll have to engage the police department and start writing tickets, which will take care of most of that. But
Okay.
you know, I think that might be an issue maybe once they start handing out tickets, and that usually goes away. But
Okay. That's all the questions I had.
So,
Commissioner?
I was unaware of this development until Ms. Michael came in 2 weeks ago, and I drove out there Sunday to check it out, and I was surprised at the amount of dirt work that's already taken place out there. But I don't understand how they were allowed to begin this heavy of dirt work when it had to be rezoned to begin with. Did they just take that risk on their own?
He owns the property.
Yeah, I mean, but.
I believe we
he's
issued
free
a
to
grading permit.
Move around dirt, but.
Morale, could you talk about the grading permit that was issued?
Yeah, he did got a grading permit.
Okay.
And he cannot allow anything other than grading the lot. So
Okay.
usually the grading is anything more than 1 foot, he cannot change grade or anything. So anything, if he did more than 1 foot, he has to come to the city to get the grading permit. So one of the main thing we look at the grading permit is like, is it going to push water into the neighbors and obstruction and stuff like that, so we look for that. So he met all those conditions, so that's why we gave the grading permit.
Okay. But he was made aware that if the commission should vote no, then he's out of money.
That's correct.
I don't know, I just feel like that's almost kind of a strong arm tactic to kind of guilt trip the MAPC and this board into voting it because he's already begun. I mean, you can really turn him down when he's already invested that much money. Maybe that's something we should review or.
Well, the city has processes in place.
Yeah.
Based on ordinances and standards, and we follow those. We've been very careful to try and follow that specifically. And this project has been a long time in. So I do understand what you're saying. You certainly have the ability to approve this or not approve it as you want. But I would just say that part of what the city is trying to do is respond to, meaning city staff in this case, and this isn't just now, this is stuff that's been developed over decades. What we're trying to do is balance the rights of people that own property to develop that property according to the rules. And when you live in a city, you have a lot of rules. And I think I've heard from several of you before that we have a lot of rules. We do, and we try to follow those as best we can and address the concerns. We think, we meaning city staff, and I would say the MAPC, I can't speak to how they felt about approving or passing the preliminary plat, but they did. And so now it comes to you, and I understand it may feel that way, but I feel differently about it. I feel that we've made sure that they, to the best of our ability, have followed all the rules, notwithstanding there are some people unhappy with that. I acknowledge that, and I think some of those people have valid concerns that we're trying to address, and quite frankly, we're asking the developer to address, which is why when I talked to Brent Cook today, he was not able to be here, but he said he was going to be here tomorrow, and so he will be available for anybody that wants to talk to him. He did tell me he is interested in being a good neighbor, and he's interested in being a good neighbor as best he can, but he's also interested in putting 28 duplexes in, partially because we gave money to ERDA, and I think we asked them to consider doing a housing study that says we need more housing. So I'm sorry it might feel a little bit uncomfortable, but that's one of the downsides of being a commissioner. Sometimes you get to make the hard decisions, and you don't get paid to do it. So we do our best to bring you the best solutions based on what the developer, in this case through Chris and Envirotech, brings to us. And I feel like we have addressed those concerns. I think we will soon hear from whoever wants to talk about this. What was mentioned last time is issues with the pounding and the earthquakes and that kind of stuff. I hope that's subsided, because I think what was causing that, several people have asked them, Brent Cook and the subcontractor, to stop doing that. It's my understanding they've stopped doing it, but I think you can hear from the public soon on that. So that's a long-winded way of saying, no, I don't believe it's a strong arm. I believe it's the process. And if you want to consider changing the process, I would recommend that we study it first, because I think we should keep in mind what may seem like it's not working now. Keep in mind, every solution we have, somebody, including in your chair, thought that it did work at one point because it got passed. Doesn't mean it can't change. We just talked about changes. So again, I feel for you. You got to balance You know, do we want people to be able to develop their property according to the rules? Are the rules sufficient to prevent? If there is damage caused by this developer is going to be obligated to the neighbors or whoever,
Yeah.
or the city if he damages something. But
Doug-
I don't know how you could build stuff without digging,
No,
pounding.
I understand that. I just, especially if it's not, my understanding is getting downgraded in zoning, so it's not like this is going from residential to commercial or the other way, but I don't know, it seems to me that all the ducks need to be in a row before they start breaking ground out there. But if it's a process that's worked smoothly before, then I guess that's okay.
Well, it
But-
works smoothly until it doesn't.
Yeah.
And so in this case, there's some folks that are,
And this is a public hearing. The next item is where you guys get to talk about it. So let's make sure that we hear from anyone who wants to talk about it during the
So
public hearing.
hold any more questions I have till the next
I
item.
think
No,
Carol's
you-
tired of hearing me talk, so she
No,
wants to hear
I'm
somebody
just
else talk.
saying, let's make sure that we hear from, I don't want, like, the people.
I have
Got it
more
right
questions,
here.
but if I need
Okay,
to
great.
wait until
Thank you.
the
All right.
6.2, or 5.2, I'll do that, or whatever it is.
You're
Okay.
fine, you can ask questions anytime you want.
Okay, okay. Well,
I thought we could too.
yeah, there was also a lot of discussion during the MAPC about the sidewalks, but I guess since this is a PUD, the city's not going to have that liability in case someone decides to sue and say, there's no sidewalks, or, like in the meeting, you said they could put sidewalks, but they may not be ADA compliant, which would probably be more of a liability.
Okay. The reason why they're doing a PUD is because they want it to be a denser development than it could be if it was a straight R4 residential duplex. Other than the front of the front setback, all the setbacks are smaller than what would be allowed. The duplexes themselves will be smaller. There are no sidewalks. The street will be private. The play area is actually the floodplain, and I don't think will be improved. I mean, I'm assuming they're just going to leave it the way it is. But that's what PUDs are for. And that is, and the MAPC decided that it was important to have this development, but you guys can make your own decision. Even though it doesn't have sidewalks, the houses are very close together. If there are cars parked on both sides of the street, and there are dumpsters out at the same time, and there is a fire, it will be very hard for the fire department to take care of it. But that said, it is economically feasible for the person to put in these duplexes, and it passed MAPC. But the PUD in this instance is being used to do a denser, smaller development. That may be what it takes to get these duplexes built in Enid right now. That's not something, that's not my expertise, but I have laid it on the line. It's smaller, denser, private roads, smaller duplexes. It's pretty tight.
As long as the liability doesn't come back on the city, I mean, that's what this commission has to protect.
It will be legal if you pass it.
Okay.
Okay, that being said, we do have someone signed up, Tanya McMichael.
Mayor, I'd like to chime in after Ms. McMichael.
Absolutely.
There's something that I need to, first, thank you guys for listening to me. It has been quiet for now. If you could bring back this here, the map of the utilities and zoning. Yeah, oh, there it is, okay. I'm still nervous. Okay. Can I see that? How do you highlight? Okay. Right here, that little section there, that floods at a good rain right up onto my property. So I'm concerned about any, you know, I just read the Oklahoma Floodplain Management Act, Senate Bill 1269 that passed. She probably knows about it. And is there supposed to be an encroachment permit as well? Because actually that is encroaching on my floodplain as well. And right now I don't have to get flood insurance. Also, the drainage ditches running beside, right down on the other side, how far away is that? How deep? What does that consist of? Who's going to clean it out? I mean, is it going to, you know, that right there, will it flood? I mean, I know you say it slopes, but they don't always get cleaned out. I mean, that's a concern. And can you rezone a floodplain residential? And last time, see how it's that little bit was R7? That, when we went to petition, we didn't get to count from property to property. You know, it limited us as well. So, yeah. So this drainage ditch and all of it going into Boggy, I think it's irresponsible to put any drainage into Boggy. I mean, next week's the 50th anniversary of the 1973 flood, and we have development going into Boggy Creek. So, I mean, I'm concerned about myself, my neighbors that way, Southern Heights, Brookside. I mean, I don't know what else to say. But it's not going to change when this starts up again. It's still going to shake my house. I mean,
Well, I think I can address that briefly from what the developer has told me, and I think we're asking him to call you tomorrow. I think Chris Burdick can address some of that. There was an extra vibrating feature, something on the compactor. I don't think they need to use that, and I think they're not going to use that, is my understanding. That may make it better for what you're saying on the loud.
there's going to be a drainage ditch beside my property.
Morali, would you address?
And to the west.
When she's done, would you address what we go through? You're the floodplain manager for the city. Would you explain so the commission understands that you have approved this?
And that's not supposed to be raised, it's supposed to be raised 0. The amount of water that goes, right? Have those tests been done?
Morali, why don't you go ahead and address what has been done to get, because this doesn't just willy-nilly come before the MAPC. Floodwaters and floodplain stuff is a big deal at the city of Enid for the reasons you mentioned. The city didn't do much before '73, which caused big issues. The city's done a ton of things since then, but
Well,
talk
my house
specifically
was a
about
lake
this
in the back in
project
73,
and why
so.
you have approved this project, notwithstanding the concerns she has.
Yes, sir. The main thing, the property cannot be drained under the neighbor's property. So they have paved flumes on both sides of it. So it's not the maintenance, like usually the grass flumes require constant maintenance, but in this, our standard is any development more than 2 houses needs to drain, they have a paved flume. So they addressed on this portion of the project. So east and west side of the property, they have paved flume. So in the middle, the developer addressed based on the slopes, they can maintain it, so without any paved flume, so it doesn't require a paved flume in that situation. The paved flume will address cross drainage, so it's not going to be affecting the neighbors. So all the drainage, the new development and the cross drainage is going to cover the paved flumes. So regarding the on-site detention, so usually we require on-site detention when the development cannot reach to the major channels. So then they require on-site detention, because our standard is they cannot increase the flow into, so they will keep the same flow rate, previous and present condition. So in this situation, they can directly drain all the developments into the major channel. So that's the main reason it is not required for on-site detention.
It still doesn't change. That area right there, that already during a really good rain backs up into these properties. So you go dumping that in there, I mean,
One of the, I think we should have opened the floodplain map. It is all like half the portion on the south side, it's already in 100-year floodplain. So we are not adding any new floodplain into the system. Can we?
just more water into Boggy Creek.
Mark, can you pull that up, or Scott, can you help him pull that up? And Morali, while they're pulling that up, would you explain where those floodplain maps come from and why we're required to follow those and what can happen
So
in
the
100-year versus
floodplain
50?
maps are like, they are studied from FEMA. So FEMA developed all these plans, and if there is a change, then like there is a letter of map amendment. So we have to create and submit letter of map amendment to change if we think that's going to be an issue, so
Is a letter of map amendment required for this project?
not required.
Is there any issues, do you have concerns that there will be, that this development will create additional flow that's not taken into account in accordance with all the regulations, including FEMA, that we have to abide by?
Like a no-rise certification. Which would be the
Let's
encroachment certificate. And the traffic study, if I can bring that up for a second, that was done 8 years ago, 2 weeks before school started. 9 months out of the year, it is way busier than the time that they did the traffic study.
Is the traffic study that old?
Morali, can you refresh me when the traffic study was done on this project? Or Scott? I believe there was a traffic study done.
2015.
I don't know what times or what days or,
It was done in 2015, and it was done on the basis that the developer would utilize the current zoning of R7 and develop multi-unit apartment complex. I don't know if we ever received a design, if he intended for more than 56 units in an apartment complex, but that's what the traffic study was based upon.
And Warren Adams at that corner had said in there that it wouldn't work.
Morali, would you address the floodplain
Yep.
questions?
Sorry.
So this is the property right here. And the dark blue is 100-year floodplain and the light blue is 500-year floodplain. So they are only developing on the it's outside the floodplain, so they are not touching into the floodplain area. So this is the hashed area is the floodway, and this is the floodplain. So they are not constructing anything into the floodplain, so that is the reason they did not provide any no-raise certificate. So we don't require any no-raise certificate. If they are, if they add dirt or add more structure, they have to provide floodplain no-raise certificate.
Okay.
And I'm sorry I even mentioned it, but I was just saying that they're not going to do anything there, and so it's a little hard to think of it as an improvement since they can't improve it yeah. And I was just saying, yes, I suppose kids could play, but there's not going to be playground equipment or anything like that because that would interfere.
And the fencing, it is old. It's probably been there, I don't know, 50 years. It's the square. It had a barbed wire on top. Okay, I understand we have trees. They still need trimmed and maintained. They haven't for 8 years. The property hasn't for 8 years. His plan was abandoned. And I don't know if it should go back to the original zoning after it's abandoned. You know, you rezoned it, and then he just, I mean, I'm glad there's not apartments, I'd rather not be. But this, just to be able to put so many, you don't have to agree to so many. It can be developed. Nobody's telling him he can't develop his property. It's just, I mean, come on. You're putting me at potential flood risk. I don't care what anybody says. That is a risk. It is.
I can just say that staff has approved that it met all the floodplain requirements the city and FEMA has. On the traffic study, you're right, it was done in 2015 when his proposed development included more density with apartments and commercial business. It was deemed sufficient at that time, and I believe that's why we didn't require another one now.
Well, his entrances there that he has cut out, he cut those out 3 months ago. They're lined up right with the neighbors across the street's driveway. I mean, how
I'm going
does
to be
that work
calling
for
Brent
them?
Cook tonight and asking him to give you a call because
But the MAPC
he needs to
should
address some of
have
these concerns
approved
with
that
you.
plat. How do you approve a plat before you approve the rezoning? I don't understand that.
It was a preliminary plat, so.
How do you approve the preliminary plat for a PUD before
Do you want to talk about the
these
process,
gentlemen
Scott?
even approve the rezoning for a PUD? I mean,
The simple answer is that's our process, so.
that's your process, that's the answer.
Well, it's the process that's in place, yes, to address the concerns, and we think that he's met
And
all
all of these
those.
need to also abide, especially when it's on a floodplain. You have state laws and federal laws that you have to abide by.
And we believe we're in compliance with those laws, or we wouldn't have approved it. So I have a great deal of respect for you, and you have brought up a lot of good questions, but I feel confident that we have done our very best. It's not perfect, you're right. That's why this body gets
But you don't have to agree to 28, you don't.
I
You just
don't, you're
are.
right. The developer's the one that says he wants 28.
You don't have to agree to
Yeah.
28.
Yeah.
You could agree to much less. I mean,
The city does not have a requirement in this case of how many duplexes he can have or not have. That is one of the challenges that we have as city staff when developers bring us items. We try not to get into telling them what they, how many of this or that they can do. What we try to do.
even though it could potentially put citizens at risk.
Well, what we believe is that he's mitigated those risks here. So I don't know how better to answer that question, but Morali, if you can answer it better, or if the commissioners have questions, that's all I'm trying to tell you and the commission is that I believe we have followed all the rules. The commission gets to make the decision. They can determine whatever they want in that case. And we're happy to tell Brent Cook and Chris Burdick's here whatever that answer is. So I don't discount that there are concerns, but I also know he owns a piece of property he's trying to develop according to the rules, so.
Thank you, guys.
I got a question on concerns on Moore itself, not the south end of the property, but the north end of the property. Isn't there ADA requirements and everything else that we have sidewalks in on Moore, on a new development?
I don't know about ADA requirements for a sidewalk, but ADA requirements, Scott, can you speak to that?
That'd be on
Or
the city side where
Burdick?
touching with the new development. Wouldn't it be required to have sidewalks on our city street?
Well, let me answer that. There is an ordinance in new development that requires city streets. What Carol and Scott tried to explain is that with a PUD, the developer has an opportunity to set different rules. There are several concerns. It would probably be helpful if Chris comes up and explains why they have not included sidewalks, and maybe that will help answer.
Not within the unit, not on his property. I am talking
Oh, okay.
our easement on the north end of the property. That's new development going in. There should be city sidewalks on our easement. That should be part of this project. That's what I'm asking.
I'm going to leave that to you, Scott, and Chris to answer that question.
I'll let Chris help answer the question, but I think the obvious answer from the developer's standpoint is on Ms. McMichael's property and the property to the west, there's no sidewalks. Are you on the west or the east? You're on the east, right? So there's no sidewalks along Moore on the neighbor streets, and so I'm sure the developer is thinking there's nothing to connect, and I'm not building
They're
sidewalks
old
within.
developments. This is new
So.
development.
Right. He's included it during his PUD process, and I don't know, Chris, if you can add anything else to that?
I don't, correct me if I'm wrong, Carol, but I don't believe sidewalks are required. This is Artillery Street. And the nodes, isn't that the new sidewalk? Is that, am I wrong in that?
Morale, you should probably respond to
I
that.
think there are only few streets in the city that require sidewalks. Moore is not one of them.
I was on MAPC when we did all that. And thinking back, it's not everywhere. We had, I can't remember what we called them, but like trade hubs. If they were a certain distance to those trade hubs, then we required them on new streets. I understand why they're not doing it on this, because when you go to a PUD, that changes everything inside of that property.
But he is talking about more.
I understand that.
outside.
I understand that, but that's the whole point of that, is to come up with a type of housing that is more feasible for him to be able to put however many units it is in there.
26.
Yeah.
I understand it, you got 26, but, 1,000 yards down the road, you got a grocery store. Somebody could walk to that grocery store. You're putting in 28 units. It's big business for that grocery store and everything else. If somebody doesn't have a vehicle or decides to walk, what are they gonna walk on, the street? That's where I'm starting to see.
We're back then to building sidewalks to nowhere.
Well, let me just jump in just quickly.
It's not nowhere, it's from there to the business center, which is
It wouldn't be to
right
the
down the
business
street.
center, it would be to the end of the property.
I believe it may be in the commission's prerogative to do what they would like to on that. I don't know how that would impact the developer. I do believe that Morale answered the question. I do recall, for those of you who've been around on the commission for a long time, sidewalks have been debated many times, and it's always interesting to hear different perspectives, because sometimes the perspective is we want sidewalks and we want developers to do it, and sometimes it's we want sidewalks and we want the city to do it. And then sometimes it's, well, no, we want to be business friendly if they don't want to do a sidewalk to nowhere. So I think the latest iteration that was passed several years ago does talk about commercial nodes, specifically list streets. I think Morale's going to try to bail me out with something here, but I believe that's where we're at on this. I'm not so sure that if you decide you want a sidewalk here, you couldn't say that you want a sidewalk there. Again, I don't know what that would do to the developer. We simply try to follow the rules that we have in place. I think we've done it. We brought it to you, so this is a good discussion in the hearing that Carol has pointed out that we're in.
I'll just say while he's pulling that up, I've been approached. I think we're going to see more of this just in today's economy. People trying that want to develop, that are trying to think of alternative ways that they can get development in Enid. I've been approached by several people that are thinking of how do we do tiny homes? How do we bring in different type of housing that are more affordable? When we talk about housing and affordable and attainable housing for someone to build new construction in today's economy and interest rates, it's a huge challenge. So people are going to be looking for every advantage they can get to bring development into Enid. So that's something I think for the future we should be thinking about and considering.
What are you showing us on the diagram?
This is the current city ordinance to provide sidewalks along these roads. So not every arterial or every collector is going to be. So this is what we have, and also the new housing developments. Those are the only two things that require.
Want to hear from everybody else?
And what you're telling us is that more isn't in a color.
That is correct.
Is there anyone else that would want to speak? This isn't a hearing, even if you didn't sign up, I'll grant you time to speak. Commissioners?
Yeah. Mr. Burdick. Sir, I'd just like to ask you two questions. The flumes that are coming out of the south end, that's going to be closer to Boggy Creek.
Correct.
are those going to kind of operate like weirs to kind of control the flow of water that's going to go to the south?
They're not intended to, no, simply because we're adjacent to the 100-year storm. So the ordinance of the retention is not required because we are adjacent to that 100-year floodplain, and like Morale said, the Boggy Creek itself. So we're not transporting that water across someone else into the Boggy Creek or into the 100-year storm.
Okay.
So it's not designed that way at this point. It's not to say it couldn't be looked at a little bit, but we really don't want to back water up.
Right.
At some point. Plus, as Scott has mentioned, the fall on this property is substantial. If you've been out there, obviously, the streets are on about a 3% grade.
Yeah.
So therefore, water's not going to migrate, really. It's going to move downstream relatively quick. So we've ran flume models and stuff for Morale that required that. It shows what that flow would be in those flumes. There again, with that kind of slope, if we run a 0.5% slope, then water migrating versus water running is a whole different animal. But to answer your question, no, that's not the way it's designed today.
Okay, and my second question is, because I went out there Saturday and really taking a good look at it, and I was surprised at how much slope it was. I mean, it's a lot, many feet. As far as the retaining walls where they step down, because I noticed the dirt work steps down like this going to the south, how deep do they have to go for the footing part of the retaining wall?
I have not seen the design of that. That'll come in with the building designs, but they'll be required to have some type of footing for those. I mean, typically they're 24 inches below grade.
Okay.
But I don't know that for a fact because I haven't seen what the developer plans on putting in, whether it's a concrete wall or the Keystone paver type design. He hadn't shared that with us at this point.
Okay, that's it. Thank you. And I'd just like to say, for my constituent, Ms. Michael, I did talk to the contractor that's doing the dirt work on this, and he told me to let you know if you had any concerns. You can call him and I can give you his information so you can reach out to him. And as far as the drum that was used to compact the ground, he said you won't have to worry about that anymore because they're not going to use the vibrating method. What they'll do to get the density, they'll use water to densify the ground, and they'll just run the drum over it more than what they would have to if they didn't use the vibration part of the equipment. And he said if you had any concerns, you can give him a call. And I'd like to say to us as a city, I would like to have your property inspected just to make sure everything's okay with your property once this project is done, in all fairness, because if I owned that property, I would want that for myself. And as a constituent of mine, I feel like we owe you that, to at least be able to inspect your property to make sure that you're going to be okay on that property. And I know your concern was with the water flow. From what we've seen and from what I understand, it looks good. From what I know.
Whenever it rains and it floods, if you live there and you saw, you wouldn't want that going and putting any more storm drainage water in that creek at all. I promise you.
Any other concerns, questions, comments? Okay, I'm going to move on to 5.2. Consider approval of an ordinance amending the Enid zoning map pursuant to Enid Municipal Code 2014, Title 11, Zoning, Chapter 2, Administration and Enforcement, Section 11-2-1, changes and amendments to rezone 615 West Moore Street from R7 multifamily residential district and C3 general commercial district to R4 residential duplex or two-family dwelling district with a PUD overlay, providing for repealer, saving clause, and severability.
Mayor, before we, well, go ahead. Mr. Mayor, I'm going to make a motion that we table this until our next meeting in October. I feel there's a lot of yellow flags there's no red flags about this project, but there's a lot of yellow flags that we really need to get answers from, and I think Brent Cook needs to be here. And that's no disrespect to you, Scott, or to you, Mr. Burdick. I just feel like we need to hear directly from this developer, because it's a combination of storm drainage because of the slope, the sidewalk issue, and then I have more questions about it. In that MAPC meeting, the developer, it sounded like he's just going to build these and sell them off. Well, who's he going to sell these to? Is it somebody who's going to maintain them? Or are they, you know, what's their track record? I don't want to approve this and it just, you know, go depreciate overnight. So.
Well, the developer is planning on building all of these homes and just wants the option that if he wanted to sell them someday he could. That he is platting them individually, not per unit but per building. So they are platted. They will have their own separate water meter, and so he would have the ability to sell one of those or a selection of those. But he has indicated that that's really not his intention. I would really like to answer as many of your questions tonight as we can, and I have full confidence in our engineering department and our floodplain management that we are not going to lead the city into a bad decision. Really, Boggy Creek travels all through Enid. Pretty much every development in northwest Enid is going to go through our stormwater system and end up in Boggy Creek. Is that correct, Morelli? So I don't know how valid that concern is, especially when we have our head of engineering saying that this is a good procedure. So I would entertain to try to answer questions, especially if you have yellow flags. I'm not.
Okay. Well, he has said that he's likely to sell these, or is he going to maintain these?
Are we opposed to people selling property in this town?
No, I'm not.
There are people that sell apartment units all the time.
No, absolutely not. But
then what is it you're wanting to hear from
when I
the
looked
owner?
up
That he won't sell them ever?
When I looked up Red Bud Development, I can't find any information on them. I can't find their track record. I look at the address listed. It's a storefront, a vacant storefront off of I-40. I'd like to know who the city's doing business with, Mr. Mayor. That's all my concern is.
I mean, I don't think we're doing business with them.
I'm more than happy to, I'll withdraw my motion to table. It sounds like the commission's ready to vote on this. So.
Well, I'm just saying, we've got an architect and we've got this assistant city manager here to answer all those questions. And we're usually not in the position of determining whether or not people can sell their property.
Yeah.
I just don't know when we start doing that.
I just got a question. Does the city have any money involved in this development at all?
Not that I'm aware of.
Not that I'm aware of.
We didn't give any sort of incentive or anything else like that?
We didn't give any incentive. Scott did mention that
And
we're doing a
we're not
water
in
line in
business.
the
Okay.
area.
We're not in business with it.
I'll withdraw that motion
We
then.
were asked to build the water system, the sewer system. We were asked to waive fees on water meters. We did none of those.
Okay.
So that means that with him being a private developer and him developing this, the liability is on him to maintain the streets within that area, right? Am I correct? So all of it's on him.
Yep, it's all private.
This is the way we like things to work. Developers come in and they say they want to do something, and previous commissions have said, we want you to be user-friendly and make sure the rules are. I think we've made strides in that area, and we probably have continued strides to make, but certainly the process can be revised as needed. There are concerns here, but it really comes down to somebody owns a piece of property, they followed all the rules that we have. Doesn't mean that everybody's going to be happy about that. And various city staff, including fire, engineering, who else? Code, community development. It is not just a willy-nilly thing that Scott Morris or Gerald Gilbert says, okay, yeah, I want to do it. It is a process. So we might want to talk about that process at a future time to make sure everybody knows how we do these things. But I'm not saying it's a perfect process. You bring up some points, maybe the process needs to be tweaked, but I think keeping in mind, this is a process that's been developed over decades, and I always think when the state legislature comes up with legislation, I think it's interesting. We've had laws been a state since 1907, yet there's always reasons for new legislation. So all I'm saying is you guys can do whatever you want here. The city has already said it meets the standards as they are, but we're happy to do whatever we need to do to look at it and follow your direction.
So even in the bonding, I'd just like to make a point. With the bonding, you have to have a surety, mechanical, and a maintenance bond. You know, in the maintaining bond, the maintenance bond, at least 3 years, the contractor has to maintain, so if something goes wrong, he's gonna have to fix it. The liability is on him and his insurance carrier. I do know that. So, I mean, that's a good thing, and I didn't know until now that when it comes to the street, with this being a private development, all that's on him. The liability is fully on him, it's not on the city.
You know, and I will say other communities do this all the time. And let's keep in mind, one of the things I hear all the time is not everybody can afford a $250,000 home. You know, where's the affordable housing? We've got somebody trying to do that.
Well, that's where I just had my question on more, was knowing that this is private and knowing that it's a new development, is what the ADA requirements were there for sidewalks. Because ADA requires any new development, that sidewalks be put. And that's why I said, so this doesn't fall into that category of the ADA. Was where my concern was at.
Okay. Any other comment? You withdrew your motion. I'll look for another motion on this addition.
Move to approve.
I have a motion.
Second.
And a second. Please cast your votes. Motion passes.
I'm abstaining.
You're what?
Abstaining.
So that's a nay.
Okay. So that has to go down as a no vote.
Yeah, so
Okay.
4-2.
So it's 4-2. Motion passes. All right, moving on. Item number 6.1. Hear a report from the code officer regarding the dilapidated case for 1107 East Cherokee Avenue. Hear from the owner representative and take any necessary action. Scott.
Good evening.
Thank you.
We're going to review real quick of what we had originally at the previous meeting. You guys, I'm just going to kind of click through these real quick. If you have any questions, please stop me. This was right before the previous meeting. You can see the, see if I can figure this thing out now. This meter box is empty. You can see the roof has covering here. Again, previously. Since that time, we've had a sign come up along with a patch job on the roof here that I'm kind of leery of myself. It looks like, I can't tell if this is new framing, new rafters here or not. I know no permits have been pulled besides the roof permit. The trailer that is up here has been removed. And then there hasn't been any utility services on it since 2018, but there is a poly cart that is present on there. This was just a couple days ago. It looks like they're putting wrap up under it. I'm not sure if this is just an attempt to enclose it in some manner. You can see on this one down here where the power is still being retrieved from the neighboring house. And also in this one, you can see the poly cart is still on property there. A couple of the patch jobs, you can still see the burn marks. We're still boarded. I can see people working here. I was unable to get a good picture of the patch here. This one actually did look good. We can also see the extension cord that is running across from the neighboring yard. As of 9/29, the only permit that has been pulled is for the roof. As you've seen, the electrical cords are run from the neighbor house. There are complaints of a container on the property being used as an outdoor restroom. We have also had complaints the workers are not leaving and staying overnight. That is my current update.
Okay, so roof's been patched, at least that one big area that you said, and that looked pretty good, and then there was a smaller patched area that you weren't too sure
It
of.
didn't look like it would, it looked like it was just over it instead of interweaved with it. That would prevent moisture from an ice building up under
One
it.
area was boarded up, so it doesn't look like we've had any police reports of
We did receive a
illegal
police
entries.
report a couple months ago. I don't believe I added that.
That was since I gave them that time to start.
No, we have received a police report since then.
For,
This was on, so this was received on Monday, August 28th. It occurred on August 27th. It looks like, to the residents, neighbors called in, people with flashlights in the house, made contact. I believe that Jacob has been squatting there based on the setup in the living room. Power, bed, food, extra. Heather said they were there, asked to fix up the house. We attempted to contact Quentin Doherty, but never answered his phone or called back. Neither were charged with breaking and entering based on the statement previously stated.
Quentin, were they working for you?
There have been people there working for me, and the people have not been there working. The EPD has called me. I have shown up.
Mr. Doherty, I'm going to ask you to come up to the microphone, okay?
Apologize.
If you would.
I've had several, probably 7+ times EPD has called me. I've come over to the house. The people have been trespassed. There's been several people arrested that were squatting there. That stuff has calmed down. Those roof jobs are not going to leak at all. I've got the plumbing, the pipes that were right there in the, just taken out and redone. I've got insurance
Who
on it.
redid the plumbing on it?
It's a friend of mine named David Dank. He's a handyman out of Fairview.
Does he have a license?
Yes, he does have a license.
Did he pull a permit on the
No
plumbing?
permits have been pulled.
It wasn't like, he just put a new pipe in. the
I
toilet.
understand, but there has to be a permit, and there was no permit pulled. Do you have an insurance license? Do you have an insurance certificate? I'm sorry.
Do I have an insurance certificate?
On that house, I asked
Yes,
you
I
about
do.
liability.
I have it on my phone. If you'd like to see it, I can
I
bring it
would
up there to you.
actually, yeah.
Chief Courier, has the fire department been called out there for any reason?
Not to my knowledge, no.
Okay.
This is the sign-in where I signed for the insurance. That's the finished document signing.
You should have a certificate that they provided you.
Well, they told me this would be good enough if it was on my phone. I talked to Chris Daly from Messer Bauer. I got it all set up, got it all paid for. I mean, if you'd like, I can bring you the certificate. I can go down there and grab it tomorrow and bring it to your office if needed. Completed application right here. You completed document. This is, you can do that, make it bigger. That's all the insurance for.
I know. And deceased.
Now, I'm wondering on code, if I'm doing work, say I don't have anything hooked up electric-wise in my house, and I'm doing work, and my neighbor's nice enough to say, hey, you can run electrical cords so you can run your tools, is that allowed?
No problem with that. That is
Okay.
perfectly fine.
Okay.
This cable, it looks more
It's
like a
used for
permanent
fans because it's hot in that house. And that's why we took down all the boards, because it's 175 degrees when we're in there trying to work. That trailer in the front yard was in there.
The question was, is if I'm working on my house,
apologize.
is it against code that I am allowed, my neighbor says, hey,
Yeah.
you can use my electric while you guys are working? Because,
Yeah, and that's what's been told. The guy next door has said.
so you have permission from
Yes.
your neighbor that when
Yes.
you're working to use those extension cords?
Yes, we do.
Okay, that was my question, and thank you.
I apologize, yeah.
And that's why I wanted to know, because I know
Yeah, you borrow your neighbor's.
I own a house next to my own house. It doesn't have utilities to it. I use the electric off of my house to do any work I need to do in that house, including running fans.
Yeah, it's hot. And like I said, if you guys would like me to bring.
I was just making sure I wasn't breaking the law by using my own electricity on my own other property, because they're two separate lots.
I see an application. I do not see a certificate, insurance application.
Well, this is what she had me sign, and this is what I paid for. I do apologize about that. I'll see if I can find the correct one.
A certificate will have coverage.
Yeah, I mean, like, I don't really know where to look. I have numerous emails from them. If you'd like, I can bring it to your office tomorrow. I can go down there and get the certificate and bring it to your office. I do have insurance on the home.
Okay, all right, thank you. Questions?
What's code department's recommendation, I guess?
We code declared it dilapidated. He has appealed my decision as to be dilapidated.
The code department's following the process that's in place. As you just said, ruled it dilapidated. The next step is an appeal here. We're happy to do whatever this body says, more time, less time. But I think that's the answer to your question.
We were told that it was going to be boarded up, it was going to be secure, the roof was going to be fixed, and that they were going to have a certificate of insurance. We don't have any of that except for the patches on the roof, which consist of 3 bundles of shingles. I mean, how are we better right now? You know, and I sit here and I think about the other people that live next to them also have rights, right? I mean, I just don't know that we're making any improvement on this.
I mean, it took more than 3 bundles of shingles, and those patches were nice patches. The one in the back of the house came all the way down. She was pulling that paper through because that was access paper. That's what that was. The rafters right there are not new rafters. We just took the burnt stuff off of them. There is progress being made on the house, but it's just me and a couple of people that I can get to every
But you said it right there, you stood right there at that stand, you know.
I
remember.
did have the house boarded up, but once again, like I said, it's hot in there when we're in there working, so we took them down to get air. It's 150, 175 degrees, and we're in there packing stuff out.
I understand. I've done jobs like that. You have to secure it every single night.
Yeah, and the EPD has been helping me run these people off. It's not like they're coming back like they used to. Like, I have people coming in there cleaning and doing things in there on a daily basis at times. They have to be able to breathe.
What about the people next to you? Do they have a right?
They surely do, and I've had a conversation with every one of my neighbors, and I told them if they gave them my phone number, if you see something that's going on that's not supposed to be right, call me or call EPD. I've talked to 15 neighbors around that area. There are neighbors in that area that are helping them out. There are also community people that are coming to help them out. Yes, there is a problem with the back neighbor that happens to be calling the city quite frequently because she's arguing with the people that work there. And I can't be there to watch two adults bicker back and forth. But you asked me to make progress, and I have been making progress. I do have insurance. I could tell you, I'm sorry I don't have the certificate on my phone, but I'm able to bring it to your office at 8 o'clock in the morning if you'd like me to.
I know, but you told me 90 days ago that you'd have it, and you'd have it when you came.
I didn't. I wasn't able to get it, but it was on my phone. It's been signed, and there is proof of the insurance. Like you're saying, I believe you're telling me I don't have insurance, and I'm telling you I do.
No, that's not what I'm telling you. I'm saying you stood right here, we gave you 60 days, and then it strung out to 90 days.
Yes, sir.
You actually got an extra month.
Yes, and I've made progress, and I do have the insurance. I do not have the certificate on me, because when I asked the lady, Miss Liz, that I was talking to, she said, no, the email should be significant for you. That's what I was told. I'm only doing what I was told, sir.
How many loads of debris have you taken out of that house?
At least 15 loads, because it was full from top to bottom. And I've got about 3 more loads I planned on Saturday going in and finish off. I have Bradford Electrician who's ready to pull the electricity once we get these loads out of the house to be able to pull the permit so they can come lay the electric wires.
Has our code department been inside that house?
No, I've come up to try to speak to this lady. I thought, no, none of them have. I've tried to speak to this lady about, getting something set up. I went over to her office right there, but her secretary took my phone number and I never got a call back.
So you're saying it's a basement in there?
Yes, sir, there's a basement in there.
And code hasn't been inside the house to see if you've made any progress on the inside of the house?
No, sir, they have not. They, from what I can see, is they walked around and took a couple of pictures, and based on that, but
from the outside.
Yeah, from the outside, they haven't been inside. I'm more than happy to set up a date if possible so they can come in and look on the inside.
So when they go, if they were to go inside the house tomorrow, the house is clean?
There's still a little trash and debris. Like I said, I have to get another load or 2 out of there this Saturday. That's what I'll be doing. But besides that, it's stripped walls and ready for electrician wire to be laid. Yes, that's what it's about.
But you don't have a permit for the electrical either.
Yeah, I'm hiring Bradford Electrician. They are going to be taking care of that permit when they go to do the job.
Where did the polycart come from?
I have no idea. I didn't put it there. And I've never put any trash in it. We've had my personal trailer I've had taking over there and removing trash out of there.
This isn't what we were promised. You said in the same conversation I did.
Quentin, I'm not happy.
I understand. I mean, I haven't, like I said, I do apologize for not having that certificate, but I do have the insurance.
But I didn't ask for the insurance. Mayor asked for the insurance. I asked for significant progress. Significant progress is not what I'm seeing.
I do understand that. I mean,
Said 90 days. I watched my neighbor and his crew put a brand new roof, tear off an old roof, put a brand new roof, decking and all, up on my neighbor's house in 2 days.
Yeah.
2 days. We addressed the roof. Roof was a big issue. I understand patching jobs and everything else, but that's not significant. Like I said, 2 days I watched the whole roof go down, shingles, 4 layers, which was against code anyway, because I believe you're only allowed 2 layers before you need to remove them and put back. And that's what they did. They removed 4 layers, removed decking, put decking on.
And we've got a roofer right here on the...
It's actually 1 layer.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
but my question is, significant progress on the roof takes 90 days?
The impression I got from code department 90 days ago was that they were asking for a new roof, entire new roofing system, or?
That was my understanding.
Okay. And
My understanding-
perhaps we failed to communicate that.
yeah, my understanding was I needed to patch the roof, not put a whole new roof on there. That's what my understanding was. So I took the means necessary to put new decking and that brand new patchwork on those roofs. And I still need to go through the side and put in a brand new piece of wood. And I'm not saying that, done a lot of work, but I've done for what one person that's out there working can do, has done.
Well, it's been a lot drier in this past 90 days than it was the 90 days previous, but
Yeah, there's.
all I can say is if it starts raining again and you have leaks in there, then that's, you're wasting money if you don't take care of that roof first.
So I said here, and I'll say again, we had this conversation. Our code enforcement team is telling us that house needs to be demolished. It's a hazard. We have complaints from other people around the area. We were guaranteed it was going to be significant, that we'd be able to see it. We're not there. I mean, I've done roofing. That would have been a one day deal. Am I wrong?
Yeah, our city attorney even gave you a deal because I wanted that over into your name. And she said, there's no possible way that the courts are gonna get that over into your name. So I let that slide. But I was pretty adamant that I wanted to see significant. I've driven by numerous times. It's my ward. I wasn't seeing significant. I called Commissioner Norwood, said, hey, what's up? Because he put his integrity out there too.
Yeah, I've been in contact with him and letting him know every single thing and every single step that's been going on.
But I said, Mr. Commissioner Norwood, I'm not impressed. He said, I'll go over, talk to him,
Yeah.
put the burner under. Apparently, everything that we said ain't making it through.
No, sir, it's made it through. Like I said, it's me and a couple of people working on Saturdays to do this. The roof has already been done. Soon as the last meeting, we had the last meeting, the roof was patched up and done the next day. That's what's been done. Now, I've been moving loads out of that house. That house was full, oh, I apologize. That house was full from basement to the top of junk homeless people have put in there. It is taking time to move that out of there. I've had tree limbs fall on wires that I've had to go in and cut and remove. It's like, I'm making progress, but it's taking me time because I'm one and have two other friends helping me.
Code, is he making improvements?
Not significant, sir.
Not significant. That's all I need to know. Thank you.
So I'll look for, do you have anything else you'd like to say?
No, sir.
Okay, thank you. Does anyone else have a comment?
I have a question. Let's assume that we vote to demolish the house, or whatever the process is. What is the procedure for him to appeal that?
This is the procedure. However, whatever decision you make, if you make a decision to move forward with the demolition, why don't you speak to the time that it would take to find somebody, and a reasonable solution might be in that time if
30
he
to
can resolve
45
it.
days is when we would, after bids and everything.
How many days? 30, 45?
30 to 45 days to get it actually demolished.
So that's a potential answer for you if you say demolish tonight.
If you all said that it should be demolished, it would be a 30-day, he would need to file an appeal within 30 days to the district court.
With the
District court?
With the district court.
District court.
And if he does not, then it's fine.
Okay, that was what I was looking for.
So if he filed the appeal with the district court, then what's the procedure after that? Does it come back before us, or it's with the district court's ruling?
Well, the district court would decide whether it was correct or not. If it was correct, then it's, I suppose he could attempt to go to the Court of Appeals or the Oklahoma Supreme Court. But the judge will either say, the city followed the procedure, it is dilapidated, and then...
Could he go to, can he file that if he doesn't own the house?
Well, good point.
If that's the case, I'll go file one on my neighbor.
Okay.
Right, I mean, that doesn't make
well,
sense.
that is, filing on the neighbor is different. If he met with me right after the meeting, the day after, and I talked to him and said, you need to do the probate. Now, if he's doing the probate, and he is the legal representative of the estate, then he can file an appeal. If he is not, then then the city would have to decide whether we're going to fight on whether he is the right person to file an appeal or not. But I think that the strong argument is that he hasn't done sufficient work, and you've given him time, and he doesn't own the property yet. He is an heir apparent.
Have you done the probate?
I've been trying to get it done, but it's been a fight and argument with my brothers.
But have you went to an attorney and hired an attorney to do it?
I contacted an attorney. He's given me a sheet of paper to make sure I get my brothers. I went to an attorney a couple years ago before I moved away and came back, and I tried to do everything I can to agree with my brothers to sign it over to me so I could get a little bit more help and stuff like this to get these houses fixed up.
But since you've been here the
No,
first time-
I haven't contacted one yet. I contacted one downtown, but I didn't get a chance to follow through with everything.
So here's the deal. This is what it appears to me. Finances is a problem. That's what it appears to be.
It's time and a little bit of finance, because I do have a family I take care of, and I'm a single dad, and I do work a full-time job as well. Like I said, I can only get over there one day a week.
Finances appear to be the problem to get this done. I'll tell you what I feel. I'd hate to see that house torn down, but like the mayor said, we made a deal. I'd hate to see that house torn down. Man, that could be a beautiful home. It's structurally sound. I went over there. Boy. But the appeal hasn't, the probate hasn't been
started. No,
started.
sir.
That process hasn't been started.
No, sir.
See, this is what I don't want to see, Quentin. If we were to give you 30 more days, I'm just giving an example, and you do bring it up to standard, without the appeal, you still got a fight on your hands because you don't outright own it. Now you've wasted a lot of money. And you go to rent that house for $700 to $900 per month. You divide that by, what is it, 3 or 4 of you all? 3 of you?
Yeah, it's 4 of us.
4 of us? That's not much money.
Well, we've all decided and come to a conclusion, since I'm the one paying the property tax and paying for the, for things to get fixed, all that compensation would go to me.
But here's the deal. With family, it's a strange thing. When you're dealing with family, that's out the door when it comes to family, because once the money started coming in, now you got a big problem. What you have to do first is take care of the legal side of it. And once you take care of the legal side of it, you won't be out of money. You won't lose. But right now where you're at, man, you're going to lose because you've invested all this time and all this money in something that, guess what? Everyone else is going to get a piece of the pie and never invested any sweat, any money, any equity into this investment. That's the thing that I'm looking at. I hate to see it destroyed, but I also hate to see you lose.
I understand.
This is more personal. I hate to see you lose. Some things you might just have to let go of and just move forward and, do something different. Because right now, the way it stands, man, your equity, your time is valuable. And if you don't have the legal side of this resolved, you're wasting time and you're wasting money. And I don't want to see you do that.
Understand.
And I understand. I mean, it was your mother's. I get that. There's some sentimental value there. I understand that. But at the end of the day, the way you're doing it, it's a little backwards, because the legal side of this is going to cause you to lose in the long run. Because I guarantee you, you start getting some rent, there's going to be some problems. and you done done all the work yourself, and you've invested what you could, and made a sacrifice for what? Nothing.
Any other comments? I'll look for a motion.
What is the motion exactly?
It has been recommended by our code enforcement that the home be condemned and destroyed.
You two take over this one. Keith, it's your ward, so.
No, I'm holding. Let me read this for you, just.
Mr. Mayor, before you take a vote, is there any way I could maybe stand and say something about this matter? Sorry, if you've already moved on to the vote, I can be quiet.
I would like to hear from Brian.
Sure.
I apologize for my informal attire. I was cooking burgers, and then I got into watching you guys, and so I just had to run out the house, and this is it. I'm here completely on a different matter, and it's just sort of one of those God things. Maybe Spirit of Jerry is just like, hey, come on, man, let's go. This particular dilapidated case, I began before I even left the city of Enid. Back in 2018, I believe, was when the original structure fire happened. I don't have a dog in this fight anymore, other than, I just live here. But if it alleviates the decision that you guys are going to make, some of the same things that were being said tonight were said back then. Him and his brother were beginning work back then. They were going to board and secure. Previous administration that worked with me gave them 18 months to get it up, because that was state statute back then, to get it up to snuff. 5 years later, we're still right here. Not trying to influence you guys' decision. I'm actually friends with Mr. Doherty, so, well, at least I was before this, so I don't know what'll happen after that. But it's been an ongoing issue, which even back then there were vagrancy issues. There were neighbors calling and complaining. So I would assume that within 5 years, you guys really expected to see something different. And from what it sounds like, it's just gotten worse. So that's my 2 cents.
Thank you. Still looking for a motion.
Make a motion for dilapidation.
For condemnation?
Condemnation.
Okay. I have a motion. Do I have a second?
It is actually, it's going to be uphold the decision of the code official to demolish.
Uphold
The
the decision of the code official to demolish.
Okay, thank you. I have a motion. Do I have a second? I have a second. Please cast your ballot. Motion passes, what is that? 6 to nothing. The property will be demolished. Item number 7 is a consent.
Motion to approve consent.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Please cast your vote.
Got to reset.
Oh, you didn't reset. All right. Now cast your vote. Motion passes 7 to nothing.
6 to nothing. 6.
6-0.
Oh, 6 nothing. I'm sorry. 7.3 though.
It's difficult with that one.
Yeah. I'll move on to line number 8, recess to convene as the Enid Municipal Authority. Item number 9, all the trustees of the Enid Municipal Authority regular meeting are present. Item 10.1, approval of claims in the amount of $117,781.27.
Move to approve.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Cast your votes. Motion passes 6-0. Item number 11, adjourn to convene to the Enid Public Transportation Authority. Item number 12, all trustees are present for the Transportation Authority's regular meeting. Item number 13.1, approve all claims. Approved claims in the amount of $873.98.
Move to approve.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Cast your votes. Motion passes 6-0. Adjourn to reconvene as the Enid City Council. Item number 15, public comment. I have two
Michelle Solano.
two people signed up. Michelle Solano, am I saying that correctly? Yes, ma'am. I'll give you 1 minute.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. I'm coming to you about some homeless people that have been living next to my residence, 1312 West Pine, and I've called the police several times. Last week we were called racial slurs and said that they weren't going to be quiet. I'm still up from being woke up at 3 o'clock in the morning last night. I got woke up last week at 4 o'clock in the morning, called the police. And the whole time they've been telling me that I couldn't do anything because the owner had given them permission. And then I guess the owner gave them permission and then said, oh, never mind, I don't want you there, because all they're doing is bringing more trash there. And then he don't want to evict them. So this morning I called and said I have an affiliation with the NAACP, and this is really not fair because y'all are telling me some wrong things, but they changed their whole thing, and they even let me file a complaint today.
Okay, and I just want to stop you for 1 second. I'll give her just a little bit more time. I didn't hear who was living next to you.
It's some homeless people that they started out there. First, they were just supposed to be in the backyard, and now they've moved in the house. And then they kind of like rented that. Now they're living in the house, and some people's been living in the tent, and then there's people living in the garage too. The code enforcements came out several times, cleaned out the garage because they're pooping and peeing in there, and I didn't know if there's any kind of rules for the homeowner that's letting them do that. I mean, I'm just been suffering for a whole year, and today's actually I only got like a kind of a resolution. And I didn't know if the city...
Ms. Solano, I'm not familiar with your complaint, so I don't know who it's gone to, but I think after the meeting, we want to get your phone number and try to find out more about the situation and try to do what we can. If there's some kind of code being violated.
Yeah, they've been burning stuff, and we had them stop that, but my husband's had to go out there and put water on a mattress they left burning back there. But I gave up for a while, quit calling cops, because basically they'd come out and just... The next day, they'd be another yelling, screaming match, and it's kind of just getting totally...
If you'll give myself or Scott your phone number afterwards, we'll get back with you. And the chief just stepped out, which is probably good for him, or I'd ask him if he's... Well, there he is, Chief. Good timing. Come on in. Good timing.
Yeah, I got into it with because one time the dispatchers, they were so rude. They were like asking me, are you sure you know where you're at? And all of this, and I'm like, really?
I'm not sure that the chief, she has a complaint, and I'm not sure if you're familiar with it or not.
The homeless people.
1012 West Pine. I know we're going to look into it, but if you had any information now, I thought I'd put you on the spot and ask you.
I think I have to go sign the complaint tomorrow. I've been dealing with this since last year, in the wintertime is when they started. It started out them just pulling stuff out of the house, and the neighbor came and said, oh, somebody had been in my house and breaking in, and I had videoed them. And they said, oh, that's my mom. And it turned into, I thought they were just going to be there for a while. I used to give them food, bring them food, let them use my electricity to air up their air mattresses and stuff. But now it's just getting ridiculous. They don't even care. Last week they said, when they called us some bad discriminatory things.
We'll follow up on that.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Ruth Ann Miles. Ms. Miles, if you could hold your comments to 1 minute.
Greetings, Mayor and Commissioners. It wasn't my intention to speak tonight until I heard the study session, so I'll try to keep my thoughts in track. We have about 55,000 residents in the city of Enid, and our public library has about 56,000 books. So that's about a little bit over 1 book per person, and that doesn't count the Garfield County residents. I just heard the City Commission have a good debate on keeping smoking, vaping, and medical marijuana use out of our parks to protect our children. I would like to know why the City Commission is not protecting our children against pornography in the library, why it is not protecting our children against a director that lured children into a secret, private chat room, and she's still employed. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you. Item number 16, I'll look for a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Second?
Second.
All, cast your votes. 6-0. We are adjourned. 6-0.
Either way.